and who am I to argue with him? So it's all good. We're getting everything switched over on our normal Wednesday night 7:30 show.
Yes, sir.
Be live on TikTok, live on YouTube, and folks, as you can tell, this is going to be one of those where I'll be on the road for a little bit. Sometimes that happens, but it's all good. We're going to have some more fun and frivolity on another Wednesday night.
There we go. There we go. We're up live YouTube. Someone get us the intro going.
All right, let's do the intro.
All right.
Hi, this is Ivan from Men Without Hats, and you're listening live from Nashville to the D&D Dynamite 80s podcast with DC and DH.
Live from Nashville, Tennessee, you are listening to the D&D Dynamite 80s podcast with your hosts, DC and DH. So, guys, take it away.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another episode of D&D Dynamite 80s. I'm DH.
I am DC.
And we're here to take another fantastic look back at all things 80s.
Well,
DC,
most
brother,
of the time. Most of the time. That's right. We do a lot of other things. Yeah.
We've branched out quite a bit.
We branch out.
You would almost think we know what we're doing, but yeah, we don't. It's all.
No, we don't have a clue what we're doing. This lady does, though.
Yes. DC, how's your week been, brother?
Hey, fast and easy, man. Smooth.
Hey, well, another 4-day week. Getting ready to get it in the books. I'm excited about this one tonight, DC.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and let's introduce everybody to our
my
guest
honor.
and,
My honor. Absolutely.
Get this one rolling.
Yeah. We've got Kelli Brink joining us tonight. She is a podcaster and a crime author. And yeah, she's got a bunch of neat stuff that she's talked about. I got to see more of her podcasts. They're very interesting topics.
Yes.
And one of them I'm going to ask her about a little bit. I didn't get a chance to hear it all. So maybe she can give me a little bit more information, because it's actually an interesting story. And it's kind of a mystery of how it all ended. So we'll talk about that. Maybe I've got her intuition up a little bit. She's curious now. So yeah, Kelli, how are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited.
Welcome. You're welcome. Our pleasure. Our pleasure for sure. Let me ask this, starting out the gate. How did you get interested in the the murder stuff or the crime stuff and all that stuff that a lot of people might think, ooh, that kind of scares me.
Yeah. Well,
so what's your fascination with that?
I think I was just a little bit of a weird kid to begin with. I was always into morbid topics. My grandma ran a funeral home, so I was exposed to stuff like that at an early age. I was always into ghost stories and paranormal stuff and all the crime shows and things like that. And at a really young age, it scared me a little bit, but I was just very morbidly curious with all of those things. And then when podcasts became a big thing, they started 14 years ago, maybe now, somewhere around there. I started listening early on to podcasts. I listened to Serial. It was so long ago, but I listened to a lot of true crime podcasts. Like Sword and Scale and all of these gruesome ones, True Crime Garage. I got really into true crime podcasts. I worked in radio for a little while in my 20s, and I thought, if I could do that, I could probably do my own true crime podcast. Yeah. So there were some murders, actually high profile murders in Iowa, where I live, around that time. And they weren't getting a ton of coverage in the podcast landscape. So that's about the time I started. And it was like 2018 now, I think. So 2018, 2019. And I just started it in my closet on a really cheap computer with a very inexpensive mic I got on Amazon and learned as I went. So
that sounds real familiar.
Right?
Yeah, that does.
Yep.
We started with a cell phone and a $5 microphone. So
there you go.
Yeah.
That's what more do you need? I mean, really, you don't need to. People always are like, oh, I want to start a podcast, and they invest hundreds, if not thousands of dollars into equipment. Or I'm like, no, you don't need to do that. First of all, most podcasts don't last more than 2 or 3 months, you might not like it. So don't invest that money until you know you're going to stick with it. So,
well, the funny thing is, we were building a ton of listeners till we went to the video cast, and once our faces got shown, it was over.
Right? You've got a face for radio. That's why you're not on the screen right now. You actually.
That's the actual
exactly.
reason.
That's why.
That's the actual reason.
He only lets me on the screen ever so often.
I don't want to scare off viewers. That's for sure. Yeah.
Kelli, one of the things that I want to ask that kind of interests me about this whole the whole genre that you're into is, why do you think it interests people so much? Because I know, like, right now, like my wife and I, we're watching Dexter, and it's kind of a dark show, but you really get into it. Why do you think that appeals, or it piques people's interest so much?
Well, I think these taboo subjects and these darker parts of life fascinate people because most of us would never think about being a serial killer. We kind of like want to get into their brain. Like, why do they do this? Like, why are they wired that way? What happened in their past to make them that way? And why am I not like that? Kind of. And then, I think women more are like, there's a higher percentage of women who are into true crime. I don't know the exact statistics, but there are more women than men who listen to it. And for that, I just think a lot of that is like, in my opinion, while women are more often the victims of a violent crime, and I think kind of reverse engineering a crime is kind of like comforting to us in a way. We can like see what were the steps that led up to this crime. How did this happen? Why did this happen? What maybe could the victim have done to protect themselves more? Things like that. I think a lot of that is why people are fascinated with true crime.
And see, I was going to say the reason women were more drawn to it is because they're a lot smarter than men, so they can figure this out. And
that's true. They can figure out who did it.
We're like, oh, shiny object. Let me look over here and forget.
Go down different paths.
Right.
Yeah, that could be. But interestingly enough, men are usually the perpetrators of violent crime too. It's very rarely women. So I think our brains are just wired so differently, and women, I think, are just drawn to understanding why. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just interesting that you say that, because it does make a lot of sense. I mean, what you're saying is, the women being more on the victim side, so they're more tearing the crimes apart, where I guess guys, if our mindset is different, we're not really thinking in that mindset, so it's not something we're interested in.
True. Yeah.
True.
Yep.
Yeah. So you go from your background, being interested in this. I do too. I love crime shows. I really do. My fiance says that something's messed up in my mind about that stuff. But
I could have told you that, DC.
Yeah, I know you do. You tell me that every day.
It could be, people are learning. They want to learn how to hide a body the right way or something too. So
well, I don't plan on doing that necessarily.
My secret's out,
Kelli. I think you hit on it. It's just the part where, how can people that in a lot of cases they're not abused, or they have pretty good backgrounds in their life, how can they just do a switch?
Yeah.
I think that's what kind of interests me.
I think
how in the world can these people do this from raised in a pretty regular, normal home? Some of them.
I think if you drill down deeper into their past, you will usually find a trifecta of things that happen leading up to it. Well, what they say, there's this thing called the McDonald triad. I'm probably going to get it wrong. I can't remember exactly, but it's like the precursors are like, if someone was a bedwetter, if someone was really into lighting fires, like a little pyro when they were younger. And I think the third one was some sort of like abuse or something in their past. I think bullying, abuse, molestation, a lot of like undiagnosed mental illness, stuff like that leads up to like makes a serial killer, I think. Some of it anyway. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Kelli, one of the things I want to ask that I kind of wonder, are you more intrigued by the methodology of which the crimes are carried out, or by the crimes themselves? What do you think kind of draws more people's attention?
Oh, definitely the methodology, I think, how they're carried out. I'm fascinated by the amount of planning that goes into pulling off a murder because, and I don't think it happens these days as much as it used to. Now we've got so much DNA technology and so many advancements in science, and even like your digital footprint gives you away. Like
I was
nobody,
going to say,
yeah.
there's cameras everywhere.
Exactly. Cameras
Your
everywhere.
cell phone,
Cell phone
your
pings.
computers.
Exactly. Your search history. I
Sure.
think it's much more difficult to get away with a murder these days than it was in, like, let's say the 80s, for instance, you
Sure.
know? So, and I have heard there are fewer serial killers now than there were before because people used to prey on sex workers and stuff like that. Well, now everything's so digital and you just can't get away with stuff. Can't get away with murder like you used to.
Yeah,
So,
you bring
yeah.
up an interesting point. I would be curious, and you may have seen some statistics on this kind of thing. I'm curious about how many murders are still unsolved in the 80s and 70s and you know, later times, like you're saying.
Yeah. I don't have
matter
a
of fact,
stat, but yeah.
like you know, like the one out in the 70s, out in the San Francisco area. They've done a movie after movie about it.
Oh,
what am I trying to say? They had the symbol.
Now you're
Yes,
the Zodiac. The
The Zodiac
yes.
killer. Yes, thank you.
So,
you know, they're still not sure who that is.
They are not sure, but I just watched a documentary on Netflix about that,
and that's what brought me to it.
Something Lee Allen, or I can't remember.
Lee Allen something, yeah.
Something I can't remember his name, but they think it was him. So, but he's gone, so we'll probably never know for sure. But
is this the one where
Arthur Lee Allen, right?
Yes.
I think.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes.
And DH, I don't know. It was a great documentary, by the way.
It was really good.
If it's the same one, because there's a bunch out there. The one I saw that was pretty recent was some they're adults now, obviously.
Yes. The kids.
That he kind of took under his wing.
Like dating or the mother or something like that. But
the mother.
Yeah.
He was a teacher. DH.
Yes.
I didn't know that. He was a
Me
teacher.
neither.
And I think he had one of the kids in class is what got it all started. And they did not have a male in the house. And, you know, that's kind of how it started.
Classic. You know, I think that women who are single moms, women who like single moms and whatever are frequently, even still, preyed upon because they're maybe in a vulnerable position, no man in the house, you know, stuff like that. But and he was kind of like grooming the kids as well. Like one of the daughters who was just a teenager, he was kind of like inappropriate with her. But so I mean, I think that he's a good candidate for possibly being the Zodiac. Great one.
Thinking that he is.
Kelli, I have to ask, with your interest and background in the podcast and all, do you find yourself like, maybe not necessarily checking backgrounds, but like when you meet someone, like you're like, oh, what's in their background? Do they have these tendencies or whatever?
Yes,
that's why she delayed in
right.
It's funny that you should ask me that because one of my best friends we are like PIs together. Like if she likes a guy, if I like a guy, we are just like Googling everything about those people because I used to be a little naive and a little too trusting, and dating is scary. People are crazy. I'm learning that more as I go through life. It's really important. A former client of mine was a little like, I don't know, maybe on the sketchy side. And I was kind of like apprehensive about working with him. So I did a FOIA request on him for all of his military records. Well, my brother works for the government too, so that's helpful. And he he's very protective. So he's super protective. And so I've gotten much more proactive about researching the people I keep close to me and making sure there's nobody.
See,
Yeah.
I should have met you before DC, and I could have had you do a background check on him to see if I want to podcast.
You can do a background check on anyone, really. You just need a little bit of information, and there you go. Put it into the internet.
We've been friends since we were like 5 years old. Grew up on the same street, so
yeah, we grew up on the same street and everything.
Yeah,
that is
and now we
cute.
work in the same school building. So
really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Kind of that's our background to our story here on the podcast. Is
okay.
That's kind of our pitch that we
do, so. D&D. Like I said, I thought you guys just played Dungeons and Dragons on the weekends or something together.
And it's funny because I never thought about that.
The numbers are not as good as we want them to be.
D&D. They think it's a Dungeons and Dragons show. Maybe.
we were thinking like the AC/DC song TNT Dynamite.
That's kind of where we went with that.
Yeah. No, that's great.
And DC, we swung and missed again on that one.
we did. We need Kelli to give us some tips.
Right.
Do this podcasting thing.
Right. Because this really is a crime when we do a podcast. So yeah.
It is criminal.
I think it's
very
great.
Criminal.
It's great.
Oh wow. So if I read the background correctly, speaking of background, University of Iowa.
Yes. Yep. I went to
communications.
Yep. That's what I did.
And and got a passion for these crimes.
Yeah. So I went to the University of Iowa, and my bachelor's degree, I went later because I have a son who's 27. So I went back to school when he was a little boy and put myself through school, got my bachelor's degree, and it was in communications. And it was like media, radio, all of, TV, journalism, all of that, a little bit of PR. But my goodness, have things changed since then? There was no Facebook then. There was no social media then. Everything was different then. So it's like, does my degree even, I might as well just burn it. It's like the world has completely changed since then in media, but that is my degree. So,
and you kind of bring up that point. That's something I wanted to ask. Kelli, do you think social media emboldens people to become more violent in some of these situations?
Well, I mean, it makes them more bold for sure. It makes their words more hateful. It makes their actions. I mean, I think I think people, when they're behind the computer screen, in the comments, they're just so mean. People can be so mean to each other. And I think the world is reflecting that these days. People are, acts of violence and hate crimes and all of these things. I think a lot of it has to do with kind of that social media landscape and the way people treat each other behind a keyboard. I do. It's a lot different than it was, just even a decade ago.
Yes, very much so. And also one of the points I was kind of that's a great point, but I was also thinking more of like how like certain serial killers in interviews with, they're kind of like the aspect of the notoriety and being famous.
Okay, yeah, yep. So there haven't been that many serial killers that have been arrested since the beginning of social media. We had the Golden State Killer, a couple other ones. Let's see. I'm trying to think of when Israel Keys was. Maybe in the last decade. I can't quite remember. And then we have like Cronenberg. I'm so the Idaho murderer. Yes. I think I don't know, like after he was arrested, but before. He stalked the girls on social media. So it's really scary. So
now, if you ever want to do a show about the Captain Crunch killer, I can take down a box of Captain Crunch. Let me tell you, I'm in for that. So that'd be the only cereal I could kill.
Captain Crunch is some good stuff.
Yeah. It is, especially the peanut butter one. That's my favorite.
That is so good. Yep, a night out indulge a little too much, come home, have some of the Captain Crunch. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
you know, hey, just call me the serial killer, Captain.
Right. That's pretty good, DH. That's pretty good.
That is
yeah.
good.
So you went into radio. Did you say you did some TV as well?
Oh, like a few like local commercials and things
okay.
like that. Nothing really big, but
Yeah.
then I got remarried and had little ones and stayed home with them. And then I was a mommy blogger for a while. I was like, I had a mommy blog about like how to save money for your family and how to like make, easy meals that are cheap and stuff like that. And then I ended up in Woman's Day magazine with some of my stuff in there. So I was really proud of myself for that because I was just a full-time stay-at-home mom. And then I was like, did some graphic design and just I have done everything. So always just grinding, little side hustle to make a little money. And then I just got into the podcasting and then that became my full-time job. So yeah.
I want to say the gentleman is it's not Chris Hansen.
I love Chris Hansen. I've interviewed him before.
Okay,
so
it is
he's
Chris Hansen.
okay.
I have it right. Is that right?
Okay. To Catch a Predator?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Chris Matthews, but I didn't think that was right. Okay, so I had it right in the first place. Yes, I've seen part of that. Very good.
Yes. Thank you. And I am so regretful with that thing because in those days, I was not as like, it was kind of like a side gig still for me. And I don't know what happened to the full interview with Chris, but I don't have the full interview anymore. And it was gold. There were so many awesome sound bites from that. So I don't know, like with computers and whatever, I ended up, I don't know what happened to it, but I've met him a couple times at CrimeCon is where he goes to CrimeCon and I always go to CrimeCon. And so I was like, please let me interview you. And he is the best man.
He's very nice gentleman.
Oh, like for me to get an opportunity to have him to myself for an hour to interview him was my mind was blown. I was like, how is this real life right now? He was amazing to talk to. And one of my little sound bites from him was I was like, did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? And he goes into his whatever. That kind of went semi-viral on a couple different platforms. People were like commenting a lot on that different times I've posted it. So, but everyone thinks that he did not kill himself, but Chris Hansen thinks he killed himself. So
yeah. And I'm gonna have to lean that way too. I just think the pressure got to him.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
I do think that the facility he was in may have made it a little easier than they could have maybe to allow that to happen. But I do think he killed himself. Yeah.
But
hey, Kelly,
go ahead, DH.
Kelly, I was going to ask just kind of like, what is like maybe your top two or three cases that you've kind of looked into that are like the top three cases you would be interested in?
Ooh, like to be solved, like that are unsolved, and I want them solved.
Right.
Oh,
you stole my thunder because the one that I was going to bring up, I bet she'll talk about.
Probably JonBenet Ramsey.
Yep,
that's way up there. I'm so curious as to who killed her. That new First of all, it was not the parents. It was not the brother. Absolutely not. That is not who killed JonBenet Ramsey. I have a friend who's a PI who's been on like 2020 and different TV shows. He's an expert on the case. And I go with him. He thinks Gary Oliva, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but basically a pedophile who did it. And they talk about that a little bit in the new Netflix documentary, Who Killed JonBenet, that everyone's been talking about. Yeah, it's really good. It will take away all your thoughts that the parents did it. I think it's just,
You're thinking that he broke into the home and hid or something?
Well, I think Yes, I think that he broke into the home and hid. I think he was going to take her out the window. He found that he was not able to do that for whatever reason. So he sexually assaulted her, murdered her, and left. And and then did the ransom note and all of that.
Gotcha.
I'm really not an expert on any case. I just follow a few cases, but that would be one. JonBenet Ramsey would be one. I would love to know who the Zodiac Killer was. There have been so many documentaries, so many movies made about that. I would love to know who that actually was, even though I think it was Arthur Lee Allen, probably. Right. And then, gosh, a third one. Wow. I don't know. Those are the two that I can think of. I don't know. Let me think a little bit on a third.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know one that you've talked about. I believe I'm right. I'm wrong quite often, but
every time he makes a decision,
every time he
decides on something, it's pretty much wrong.
That's right. But I want to say that I heard on something you did about the DB Cooper.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for reminding me of that. Okay. Now I have four.
That's one. That's one that really.
DB Cooper
really gets me.
Did you hear recently though that I think it was his grandchildren, there was a parachute that was in their barn all these years, and they were like, our grandpa, I think it was grandpa, not dad, I think it was grandpa, was DB Cooper. Like that was always the story. So I think we have found that one out. I need to look into it a little more. I haven't heard a ton about it in the news, but I think that one might be close to getting solved.
Here's my thing: is they never found a body, right?
No, they never found a body. They found money. They found the marked bills. They found that. It was
buried and stuff. Yeah. I guess the soil, over because some of it got into a river or a creek or something, and it's covered over.
And a little boy found it.
Yep.
They've never found anything, and
that's just baffling to me.
Me too, because to be able to
go off to South America or
I
think
who knows?
If it was who they think it might have been, he lived a normal life. For him to survive that jump, first of all, at night in terrible weather, in like terrain that is not easy to navigate through. And the parachute was like, I'm going to get this wrong, but like an experimental parachute, some sort of thing that couldn't be steered and stuff. So like so many things working against him.
Makes sense. Yeah.
For him to be able to pull that off, I would have died to hear his story. Like what a story. Yes, he committed a crime in this, but it was basically a victimless crime. You know what I mean? And I've always been rooting for DB Cooper. I love that story. I hope he got away with it. Sorry, I do.
That's one of those where you would like to see how the plan laid out.
You kind of would want to.
Yeah, like the everyman. Like it's like, oh, he pulled that off. What, really? He must be like Superman. Yeah.
You open a door on a plane and just jump out of it. I mean, that dude, he's got.
He had some cojones, yes, for sure. And
that's where I was going with that, but I appreciate you going around that and helping me with that.
Well, I'll censor myself. I can get a little foul mouthed sometimes, so I'll be careful. But the other one is the escape from Alcatraz. So that's in my book as well. Don't quote me on like the year or anything. I think it was like 1960 something. So, but the four men, I think it ended up being three, but they escaped from Alcatraz. Did they die in the bay? Did they make it to the place they were trying to go? I think they made it. A lot of people think they made it. So that was the other one I'm just curious about. So I even though they were like criminals, I don't think they like killed anyone. So I was kind of like, go. But I root for the underdog. I shouldn't always root, but I'm like,
if I'm correct on that, I think 2 of them were brothers.
Yes, they were. Yep, they were. And then one of them was supposed to go out with them, but he couldn't get the grate off.
Yeah.
So he was left behind.
Yeah.
So
I think the movie's pretty accurate.
What is the movie? Tell me the movie.
Escape from Alcatraz.
Is that what year was that?
Eastwood.
Oh, that okay. It's like an older movie. Okay.
Yeah. I think that it lines up pretty close to what they think all happened.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
very good. Yeah.
Just really interesting.
Speaking of the book, the DH, I like this. In her description of the book.
Yep.
She's got where it's a read that will help you go to sleep, basically. So I'm curious how you can. That's awesome writing, where you can write about crime stuff, and it's a good read for sleeping.
Well, basically, I just try to be really boring, so it's pretty easy. No, it started as a podcast. True Crime Sleep Stories started as a podcast because what I've found is people, especially women, love to listen to true crime podcasts to fall asleep. They fall asleep to tales of murder and mayhem and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought, why not take those stories, but don't put maybe all the gory details in and make it like pretty. I try to tell, it's like a grown up bedtime story, really. But there's might be usually murder in it. And I just try to make it very soothing. I tell the story in a very soothing way. I have like Zen music in the background. In the beginning, I do a little ASMR thing. I'm like, now it's time to get cozy and curl up with a true crime bedtime story. And so, that is how it started. And then I have some friends and, acquaintances who are in publishing, and they were like, this would actually make a good book. Why don't you just turn your podcast into a book? So it started, the first 2 volumes were episodes of the podcast. It's basically just the podcast in book form. And I've written 2. I've got volume 1 and 2, and then volume 3 is coming out on Valentine's Day this year. So
fantastic.
But yeah, it's just kind of like they're like short, a collection of short true crime stories to read before bed. And they're kind of like, I don't know, maybe I don't get really into the details, more just like skim the surface of a case.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that you have Enter Sandman by Metallica playing in the background, sleep with one eye open.
Well, yes. I don't know, like there are I have a friend who was like, you expect me to sleep after reading this? Some of the stories are a little disturbing, but that's, it's just kind of like a fun little spin on true crime books. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about a few of these guys and give me your opinion of possibly what went wrong with them.
Okay.
Why the following? Why so popular with these particular people and all that?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Okay, sure.
Comes from a fairly, stable home. Became a lawyer. Ted Bundy.
Yeah, Ted Bundy. Did he come from a stable home though? I don't know, because the person who was who raised him as his mother, I think was actually his grandmother, and his mother was actually his sister was actually his biological mother. And I think there was probably something there. I think there was some sort of trauma back in that. Definitely some undiagnosed mental illness, I think. Narcissistic, some sort of personality disorder, I think, with him for sure. He had this grandiose sense of self, like when he represented himself in the courtroom, he was like, I think there was definitely some sort of mental illness there, but everyone thought he was so handsome. If you say that, you get kind of hated on a little bit, but he was like a very handsome, well put together man.
That
And
lured him, didn't it?
yes,
That helped lure
definitely.
some of his
I mean,
victims,
he
yeah.
was super suave, like looked great. He was
Smooth talker,
preppy.
probably.
Yeah. Yep. He seemed very intelligent. So
Yeah.
we get this idea in our head that, oh, it's the boogeyman who's going to come after us. No, it's usually someone who looks very normal. They know what they're doing.
That's a good point.
So I think I totally would have fallen for him. I totally would have fallen for his arm in the cast trap, because like I'm a nice person. I would have been like, oh, you're so cute, I'll help you. Yeah, definitely.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And kind of speaking of him representing himself, do you think he had the, and I know this is kind of cliche, but do you think he had like the God complex going?
Yes, absolutely. He thought he was going to get off. He thought he was like this amazingly persuasive man who could convince a jury, just like he convinced all these women to get in his car. I think that's what he thought. Yeah.
Smooth talker. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen or heard of this particular gentleman, and I want to say it was 70s, 80s when he went on his deal, but he was actually a paid assassin.
Okay.
Richard Kaczynski, what is his name? Richard
Ted Kaczynski?
No.
Okay.
It's a ski, but it's Richard, called the Iceman.
Oh, I don't know this one. I don't know this one.
You might want to do some background
checking
about that guy. I've actually got a book about him, where he was a murder for hire guy for the mob.
That intrigues me.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're killing all these people mercilessly. Are you doing your job, or are you a serial killer? There's a fine line. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think that.
Just look up the Iceman.
Okay, I will.
You will be just intrigued.
Okay.
By the story.
Nice. Okay.
Matter of fact, HBO did a series with him while he was in prison.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
He did a talk with a psychiatrist, criminal psychiatrist.
Okay.
HBO, one of their producers, did like 2 different shows with him.
Okay, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
So do you think was he like a serial killer? Did he like get off on the thrill of the kill?
Well, and here's what's odd. He lived a so-called normal raising his family.
He had a wife and kids.
Oh yeah.
But he's like, sorry, honey, I got to go to work. But my job is killing people. Did they know?
They had no idea. They had no idea. They thought he was some kind of stockbroker or stuff, because they went from having nothing to, a very nice home and and all this stuff, and nice Christmases and and I mean, he's living like a just a suburb kind of life, and goes out. He said he would get a call where a guy might owe me money or owe somebody money, and I'd get rid of him.
Oh my goodness!
Come back home.
Wow.
And they said,
totally heartless.
They asked him, did it ever? No, I don't have any feeling about it. I have a zero feeling.
Reminds
me. The only
me,
thing is that I wish I could take back is hurting my family. Them finding out about it, and them hurting from it.
He had to have a chip missing. Yeah.
I have nothing in life. He goes, I have nobody, So he said, I didn't care about anything.
Kind of reminds me of the character in No Country for Old Men, that movie where the guy, he just is like a robot, like a killing machine. No feelings for anyone or anything. I think that it's weird to think of like a hitman having a family.
Right.
But then I'm like, also like there are a lot of serial killers who had families, like the BTK killer, John Wayne Gacy, people like that. And their families were always clueless as well.
Right.
But were they, was there something weird happening in the relationship that made them just oblivious to what was going on. I don't know. I feel like I would know, but I don't.
Right.
I mean, we all probably think that, but yeah.
I want. Hey, he's
Hey, I made
the
it in studio.
Well,
There he is.
hello. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Finally, I'm here.
I want to say it's Richard Konglinsky, something with a K, Konkinsky or.
Okay.
But anyway,
well, we'll all look
I
up
think
the
the
You're
story
close
will
on that
intrigue
name,
you.
DC. You're close on that name. It's like clicking for me.
Konglinsky or something to that effect. But
I'll look it up.
There's actually a
afterwards.
movie.
Okay.
And Winona, what is her name?
Winona Ryder.
Winona Ryder. Oh yeah.
Okay, she played his wife.
Oh, okay.
The
Okay.
Confession of the Ice, or it's this Iceman or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Oh, who played him? Do you remember?
I can't remember, but I'd seen him in a bunch of things. I just can't recall the name at the moment. But it's very good. Who is the gentleman that always kind of played crime people? Ray something that died not long ago.
Ray Liotta, Ray Fiennes,
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Okay. Oh yeah, he was in like Mobster. Was it Ray Liotta?
Yeah, he played one of the like a mob guy in this.
Always. I think he probably in real life may have been in the mob, but I don't know. Right. He did such a good job.
Too expert. Yeah, he was too much of an expert.
Mm-hmm.
But Konglinsky, I just can't say his name, but it's something to that effect.
Yeah. I'll look that up.
In the New Jersey/New York area.
Okay.
Is where it's.
Wow.
And,
was he affiliated in the mob though in the movie? He was like a mob hitman?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It took his story, it walked through his story.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah, check.
I will. Yeah, for sure.
And then the one that I still am baffled how he could just brainwash people. I just don't get it. Charles Manson.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I know.
That one still baffles me.
Okay, so there's the whole MK Ultra thing with Charles Manson. Like, I think and I am just talking out my ass right now. I don't totally know the details, but didn't he participate in like that government experiment where they gave people LSD and like altered their brains and stuff? I don't know. I know that's a total conspiracy theory. I think there's some tie to MK Ultra, I think, with Charles Manson. Okay. So we'll have to look that up after the show. I think, he's a charismatic character because in his younger days, he was, a hippie. He was an amazing musician. That's what women like, right? And so I think he was able to manipulate women, and there were a lot of drugs involved in him and the Manson family. Mm-hmm. And I think they were just off their rockers, and he was able to swoop in and become this charismatic cult leader, basically. And then I think people later have been talked about how they regret what they did and things like that. But I just think, I don't know. He's an interesting one. You know what? One of the very first books I read I think I might have been in 6th grade, was Helter Skelter, the story of Charles Manson and all of these murders and stuff. Wow. So, I mean, that little throwback to my, back a long time, it does. I shouldn't have been reading that.
One of the interesting points you bring up about that, Kelly, something that kind of resonated with me in that story with Charles Manson is people have a natural tendency of wanting to belong to something. And I think he was really good at finding those individuals that may not quite fit into cliques or where, and be alienated and be able to pull them in.
All of these people. All of these people have that in common. They are able to hone in on people's weaknesses, see that like lack of confidence, that yearning to belong, and take them under their wing and whatever. And they they feed off of the power from that, and he was able to do that on a grand scale.
Yes.
Yeah.
True. And here's the thing. He also got involved with the Beach Boys, of all people.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, which was crazy. Which Wilson was it?
Brian.
It was the drummer. It was the drummer, not Brian.
The only Wilson I can remember is Owen Wilson. He's not the Beach Boy.
Well, wasn't Brian Wilson, wasn't he the one who was a little weird?
Yes.
So that
and
seems.
I think he's still living.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, Brian's alive. It's Brian, Carl.
Oh, okay.
Brian, Carl were in the band. There was 3 brothers. Very good documentary / movie about the Beach Boys that Disney put out not long ago. It's very well done.
And they talk about Charles Manson in that one?
They do a little bit where
okay.
He hooked up trying to remember which one it was. But anyway, the drummer, I think he was the youngest.
Okay.
Of the Wilson brothers.
Yep.
Whichever one it is. But anyway, he was the drummer. And what's crazy is he was the only one that actually surfed.
Oh.
The rest of them tried it, and like one of them, like Al Jardine, he actually almost drowned. He said, "I ain't never doing this again."
Oh my gosh, what posers! They were able to. They were able to keep up that facade.
Of course, we loved the girls and the cars and and all that we sing about, but they said he was the only one that was a surfer. He loved the ocean. And sadly enough, I think he drowned.
Oh gosh. Oh, irony. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of my first records I ever owned were Beach Boys albums, and I played them on my Fisher Price record player.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, we did work in some 60s, 70s, and 80s into the show. Look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. There was another one that I wanted to ask about real quick.
Yeah.
And it has slipped my mind.
Oh, shoot.
That's your age showing up, DC. Old age is kicked in.
Charles Manson, Iceman, Ted Bundy, D.B. Cooper. I had another one on the list. I know. The lady that we interviewed a while back that actually wrote the book about this gentleman and interviewed him in jail and all this stuff.
Oh, wow.
Sam, what was his name? Sam something. And he was killing like streetwalkers and things throughout the decades.
Okay. Who was the lady you interviewed?
You would ask. And Julia.
Jacqueline?
Julian something. Julian.
Okay.
I'll tell you who it is, and you can look it up. Her husband is the bass player for. Help me out, DH. It's been a while back.
That's what I'm trying to think back. I'm still trying to. I can picture her.
Juliana is her, or Juliana or Julian is her name.
Okay, that's enough. I can find that. Okay, so Sam Julia
is the
bass player
is the serial killer.
Okay, what did he do?
He would kill like streetwalkers
in the 80s.
I think it started kind of in the 80s, maybe early 70s.
It was that low-hanging fruit. Like, how easy was it then? There were no cell phones. There was no internet.
Right.
Who do you prey on? Not your next door neighbor. Go on the streets and find a prostitute, So it's just not like that anymore.
No, now you got, no matter where you go, somebody is taking a selfie or recording themselves, or there's always, it seems like you watch a lot of these shows now, and it's like a lot of the footage first thing they do is start looking for people that were in the area and start reviewing social media.
Exactly. Ring doorbell cameras, all of that, business cameras and, cell phone pings, all of that. It's really hard. I think it's really hard to get away with murder these days. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
DH, do you have one to ask about?
Well, my biggest thing, the biggest interest I have, just kind of floating back here just a little bit, um, is kind of what's driving. Like, are you finding in your podcast? And I'm going to kind of ask this: is it more of a generational thing? Do you think, like, is there a certain age group that's more interested in crime? And the reason I'm saying this is because of social media. Do you think there's become a disconnect with the younger viewers as far as crime drama, because there is so much that's kind of offsetting the types of crimes we used to have?
So, no, I mean, across the board. I've done live shows, I've done tours, I have been to a million different conventions, I've true crime podcast friends all across the globe. Every age group is fascinated with this. It's, I mean, high schoolers all the way to like women, men, whatever in their 80s. There is everyone's fascinated with it. I think for a while I was like, it's a fad, it's going to go away at some point. But we've always had Unsolved Mysteries, Dateline NBC, Forensic Files, all of these very popular shows that are having a resurgence now. Like there's a redo of Unsolved Mysteries now on Netflix. Like all these shows they're coming out with a spinoff all the time. I don't know that it's ever going to go away. And I think all ages are fascinated with it. Why? We're just like curious about those darker sides of life that
I think it's part of human nature. Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
Really
It's like you see a car accident happen on the road, you're gonna look,
Right.
It's just like, why? Because we're all gonna die one day. And I think that it's a human thing. Like we're curious about that. We're curious about, we don't know how it's gonna go,
The
but
unknown.
it's just the unknown. Yeah. Yep. It knows no age.
Behold the Monster.
Oh, okay.
Jillian, not Julian, Jillian.
Okay.
Lauren.
Okay.
Jillian Lauren's her name.
Okay.
We interviewed her 2 or 3 years ago, and my apologies. She was super.
Oh yeah,
nice lady, just
yeah,
very informative. Samuel Little.
Samuel Little. Okay.
Is the name of the serial killer.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But and I'd seen, I think it was a documentary is what got my interest, and I contacted her. But she had a board in her house of like detective stuff. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
This has got to be this is his pattern. He probably killed this one too. He was in the area. I mean, she had like, all the yarn and all this stuff that, and she ended up like actually communicating with him and going to see him in prison, and he'd make call, they'd call back and forth where she interviewed him, and
that's so interesting.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I have not done that with a serial killer, but I have had communication with a murderer in prison.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really interesting. So it was a local thing. A case that was really interesting to me because he was a minor when he actually murdered he murdered his grandparents. So they were like his caretakers. Totally brutal crime. Shot them in the head as they were on the couch. I mean, by all appearances, he was a monster. Well, when you dig a little deeper, there was a history of tremendous abuse. So sexual abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, every kind of abuse. And these were his mother's parents. She was sexually abused by the parents when she was a kid, but she, her life was a little messed up and he ended up in their care. And he was just a kid who, and I am not condoning what he did, but he is a classic case of falling through the cracks, falling out of the system. Like it was horrible. But I've told his story. I've talked to his mother. I've written about him, and I did go to visit him in prison to get his side of the story and hear what he had to say. And his
Is that
mother's
pretty local to you?
yeah,
In
his name
Iowa?
was
Okay, it's in
Isaiah
Iowa.
Sweet. Yeah, his name was
Okay.
Isaiah Sweet, and there have been some other shows that have been done about his
Covered him?
story.
Yeah.
I've talked to his mom. She's been on my podcast. That was pretty crazy. So I have been to a prison to talk to a real murderer before, which was interesting, but yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Stuff that sticks in my head that I can't figure out and I can't remember. I got to look it up because it'll drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Scott Schreiner is who she's married to, who is the bassist for Weezer.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh my goodness. Oh, I love Weezer. I love Weezer.
Yes.
That's cool. Okay.
That's
very
was
cool.
Nuts. I had to look
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like an interesting case.
That just but the Sam Little.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good documentary too. But of all of them that we've talked about, I think the Iceman, and I'll look that up as you're talking too.
Yep. Okay.
DH would have another question. I'll find out exactly who the Iceman is.
DC's on his information dive there.
Well, it's bothering me to death. I should have
Google
all my facts together. Yeah.
So one of the things, Kelly, you were kind of talking about, you visited. That's actually a question I have was, what was the most unique interview that you've had on your podcast? I think it's probably, then there may be a different one, but I think it's probably going to be hard to beat the visiting the murderer in jail. But
no, it gets better. It gets better.
Well,
you want to hear it? Let's go.
I do. Yes.
All right. So that summer when I decided to start a podcast, there was I live in this very small town, and I had just moved from this little bit bigger town where there was an unsolved murder case. So I lived in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. There was a 40-year-old unsolved murder case. And then I moved to this small town. Long story short, I'll try to make it short. It ended up the 40-year-old unsolved murder case got solved right after I moved to this other town. Guess who the murderer was? My new neighbor where I lived.
Wow.
So yeah, he had murdered this teenage girl, 17 years old, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, in the mall parking lot, like 3 days before Christmas. He stabbed her to death in her parents' car in the parking lot. That case went unsolved for 40 years until DNA technology came, like people with 23andMe and stuff like that.
Right.
Because so they had a little bit of the perp's DNA, he cut himself and his blood was on the steering wheel and on the girl's dress. So they were able, over the years, they saved all of this and they were able to narrow it down to like, so his long, very far removed cousin was how they ended up finding him. This woman in Washington State who she had never met her Iowa family or anything like that, like very long distance family. She did 23andMe, and she also was, I think there was an adoption in her family, and so her DNA was stored at the DNA house, whatever, the place in the US where they store DNA. I'm getting it all wrong. But anyway, that's how they found her. They narrowed it down to, they thought it was like maybe 3 brothers in Iowa who could have been the murderer. They tested all of their DNA with swabs. They narrowed it down, and it was this one man, Jerry Burns. Wow. So he owned the local lawnmower store, and that's where I had bought my lawnmower and everything when I moved into town. Man. And he lived on the farm less than a mile behind me. So he was my neighbor. He had been at my house to deliver my lawnmower and stuff. And he's in prison right now for the murder. So it's like, I moved from this town where there was this crazy unsolved murder. I moved to the town where the murderer lived. Not only did he live there? He was my neighbor.
He was in your
That was
backyard.
super
He was in
crazy.
your backyard.
Yeah. And I was literally in my backyard. And I was like, if this is not my sign to start a true crime podcast,
Right.
I don't know what else is. So, yeah.
You're definitely an expert by now with that story.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Richard Kuklinski.
Kuklinski?
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's a mouthful.
Yeah. Kuklinski.
Okay.
Richard
All right.
Kuklinski.
Okay.
And this, in the movie, who played him, Michael Shannon.
I don't know who Michael
has
Shannon
been in
is.
some things I've seen, yeah.
Okay.
The gentleman you talked about, Ray.
Yeah.
Is in it. The gentleman, David Schwimmer?
David Schwimmer from Friends.
Yeah.
He was Ross
he was
from
in it.
Friends.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It's a good story.
Sounds
called The
good.
Iceman.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's worth a watch, I think.
Yeah, it just goes along with the layout of what but research that guy.
Okay, I will.
You'll be interested in that stuff.
I will.
And you can get, and I tried to do this, DH, the Fed that brought him down, that kind of got in his inner circle. You'll get that in the research, like when you see how he got caught and all that. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but anyway, I've tried to, without any response, tried to get a hold of him. One of
the person who's in prison, the murderer?
No, he's died. He's passed away.
Oh, got it. Okay.
But no, the guy that brought him down, the Fed that became kind of his buddy.
Okay.
Set him up.
It's
they
crazy.
Got a guy in the inside.
It's sometimes they don't want to talk. People who have been through this, they're like, I have talked about it till I cannot talk about it anymore. But it's surprising so many people do still want to talk. I've had some awesome guests on my podcast. I've gotten to interview some amazing people, and I interviewed Brandy, the cousin who's with the DNA thing. In that case, I had her on my podcast too, so she was interesting to talk to. And it's like people just want to tell their story usually. So just if you want to talk to him, be tenacious, don't give up. Stalk him on social media, send him a bunch of DMs and stuff.
Right. You gotta keep trying.
Yeah. Then when they do the background check, they can see that you're a stalker. See.
Right. Yeah, that adds to my plate there. Yeah. He's a stalker. Yeah. Before we get you out of here, let everybody know where they can follow you. Of course, I already know, and DH knows, but
the main thing is Instagram. Everything I do is on Instagram at Kelli Brink, KelliBrink, all one word, Kelli Brink, Kelly with an I. That's where you can find all my stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And you can see all the podcasts from there as well.
Yeah. So, my podcast is True Crime Sleep Stories. So if you go on, Apple Podcasts, all the platforms, iHeartRadio, just look for True Crime Sleep Stories, and then you'll find me.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Stories to sleep by.
Yes. Scary bedtime stories.
There you go. Kelli, it's been a pleasure. We appreciate
it. Thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This has been fun.
Can you stick with us as we close it out?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. DH, take it away, my friend.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for another episode of D&D Dynamite 80s. Remember, you can find us pretty much anywhere we can put our ugly faces. They're going to be out there. So just look for them. They're there, I promise. But you can find us on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker Radio, Radio Republic, YouTube, in the Twitter sphere, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, of course, our website, and Google Podcasts, all of that, D&D Dynamite 80s. Also, shout out National Voyager magazine, Canvas Rebel magazine. Both did articles on D&D. And a shout out, we are part of the Canyon Star TV family, so you can see our show on there as well.
I still can't believe that a TV show or a TV company would put us on their listing, but
Man, I tell you what,
We appreciate them.
I'm just glad that first part of having to always do the scarecrow face kind of expired.
It
So
expired.
we don't have to do that anymore.
We need to get Kelly's stuff on there.
We do. Oh, that would
Oh
be
yeah,
that
sure.
would be amazing. We need to make that contact. That would be
hook
amazing.
her up with the information.
I've been wanting to get into like doing a TV show kind of thing. So that'd be great.
Yes.
I'd be down.
Send you that information. I'll send you that information of who to contact.
Yes,
awesome.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you.
Yes. And Kelly, thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Either congratulations or condolences, whichever way you want to look at it. You are now part of the D&D Dynamite family. So,
yay! All right.
So we'll say congratulations or condolences. It's whatever you desire.
I think it's congratulations for sure.
The books.
Amazon. Just Amazon under True Crime Sleep Stories. The third one comes out on Valentine's Day. Yep.
Very good. So folks, look for that. Kelli Brink.
Yes.
Yes, and folks, as I always end it off before I throw it over to DC to play us out with all of our sponsors, remember, it doesn't cost anything extra to be kind to each other, so always be kind to each other. DC?
I'm going to put you to work again, January the 20th. January the 20th, the special show. Jesse's Girl from out of New York City.
You know, I wish I had Jesse's Girl, and now we're going to. Look at that.
There you go. So you're all set.
We're all set. Now I get paid extra for that, right?
We'll see what's in the piggy bank. I don't think there's anything left in the piggy
Can you
bank.
double my current salary of $0?
I
Just
think
double
I can
that
handle that much. But anyway, I'll work him to death some weeks. We've done what, DH? We've done up to 3, hadn't we, in 1 week?
Yes. Yes.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
That is a lot of work.
That'll be a 2-weeker. That'll be a 2-day week.
Hey, big news. You know, we're only a couple of months away from starting year 5 now.
Yes, we are.
You realize that?
March.
5 years.
March will be here before you know it.
Oh, it'll be here before you know it. We'll march on through it too. I think we're already booked. We're already booked into April, and I think I seen a May date.
No, we're already booking into May.
That's what I said. I think I saw a May date. Yeah, already booking
May
in.
date
Yeah,
just the other day.
Yeah, so we appreciate everybody supporting our podcast.
And following us. Yeah, let's get them great sponsors in.
Let's do it.
DND Dynamite 80s would like to thank their sponsors: Hudson's Flags and More, Nesting Project of Smyrna, Tennessee, PJG Marketing, Totally Cool 80s, Charlie Bubbles Cares for Kids, Jackie's Creations on Facebook, Riley Rhodes Art Designs at RileyRhodes.art on Instagram, and the Magic Yarn Project. You can find all these great folks online. Yes.
Yes, and folks, make sure and check them out. A couple of that I want to highlight there. We appreciate all our sponsors, but we are so privileged to be a part of the Magic Yarn Project. And what that is a lot of volunteers. They go in and they knit and make by hand head coverings for children that are battling cancer. Also, we got a special announcement about that coming up, DC.
Talk to me.
The Roy,
I love this.
Roy Band, right?
Yes.
So February 1st, correct? Is that
correct?
So February 1st, we're going to do a special show. We're going to do a live show before the Roy Band performs. And the Roy Band has, what amazing people, but they are going to take the proceeds of the show and give them to the Farm Project.
Yes.
So just amazing those connections being made. And then also want to give a shout out to Charlie Bubbles, Cares for Kids, our friend the Vooch there.
Actor Paul Carafotis.
Yes, the Vooch. What they do, folks, is
Paul, I know you see the shows, so we appreciate you, buddy.
Yes, and if you send in a donation, what they do is they provide books to children that may not necessarily be able to afford the books. And as teachers, we know how important literacy is. So 2 amazing organizations. We're very blessed to be a part of their family.
Absolutely.
And just ask that you help us support them.
Great folks they all are.
Oh, that's amazing. You guys are using your platform for things like that. That's awesome. Good job.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll make it a little difference there.
Yeah.
We hope so.
Especially in the Yarn Project. They're just great people in what they're doing.
Just amazing.
Yeah, it was weird how I found those folks out too. They were on it like the Sunday morning CBS show or something,
Yeah.
talking about them, and I was like, I'm bawling, and I was like, I gotta get a hold of these people.
Yeah.
And she was so gracious, the lady that founded it, and yeah, so we want to try to help those people out. The Magic
awesome.
Yarn Project, yeah,
Yes.
they make like DH said, superheroes, and they make
Princes.
you
That's
know, and
cute.
all that stuff. So
Yeah.
Maybe they'll start
they
making
need to
for
come up
old
with something
people
for
one
us.
day.
That's why I don't take mine off. I don't want to blind people. So there you go. So yeah, maybe they can get us a cover
Right.
to put on our head.
I think I would rather them focus on taking care of the kids.
No, me too.
It means a lot more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Once again, Kelli Brink, author, podcaster, and we appreciate your time so much.
Yes.
Well, let's
Thank
catch
you
up again
guys.
sometime.
This was really fun. Thank you so much.
You're
I had a
more than
great
welcome.
time.
We appreciate having you.
Thank you.
As DH always kind of says, go ahead.
Oh, I'm
brother.
DH. You're DC.
I know, as DH always says. Go ahead and say your saying.
I already said it. I said
Say
mine.
it again. I love it.
Oh,
go ahead and say
it
it
doesn't
again.
cost anything extra to be kind, folks. So always be kind to each other. DC, the senalities are beginning to sink in, brother.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. It's the tired teacher in me, I guess. By the end of this time. Yeah, and as DC always leads us out, keep playing those 80s, my friends, and we'll see you on a special Monday show.
Monday. See you Monday, folks.
Monday, 7:30.
Thank you, Kelli, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.